All right, we will call to order the June 17th meeting of the Kansas Board of Regents. Great to see everyone. I hope your summers are all going well. Appreciate you joining us here this afternoon. First up on the meeting agenda this afternoon would be consideration of the minutes from May 14th, the special board meeting on May 14th, and our May 20th and 21st regular board meeting. Any discussion related to the minutes? If not, would entertain a motion to approve. Okay, motion by Regent Crocker.
Second.
Second by Regent Amar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Moving into our introductions. Do we have any introductions from any of our university CEOs? Yes, President Newsom.
Thank you, Chair Benson. I have a couple of introductions. One is a new person to our team who's here, and her name is Stephanie Whiteley. Stephanie's in the back. Go stand up. Stephanie joins Pittsburgh State University as our Director of Internal Audit, bringing a strong background in internal audit, enterprise risk management, compliance, and organizational transformation. She's led SOX compliance and internal control programs, partnered with executive leadership to strengthen governance and accountability, and help establish a global business service function focused on operational excellence. Her experience spans the utility, restaurant, franchise, gaming, and healthcare industries, and she provides a broad perspective on risk strategy and organizational effectiveness. Proud to say she is a two-time graduate of Pittsburgh State. She holds a Bachelor of Business Administration and an MBA from our university, and she's been recognized nationally through the Edison Electric Institute's Diverse and Emerging Leaders Cohort and the Utility 2030 Radiant Women's Leadership Cohort. So happy to say we now have filled our position of internal auditor, and Stephanie Whiteley's with us at Pittsburgh State.
All right. Please help me welcome Stephanie. Yeah. Welcome aboard.
The other person is not an introduction because he's been around a little bit, but it's Dr. David Weaver. I'm sure hope he didn't step out. There he is. Dr. Weaver is our outgoing faculty senate chair. And although Dr. Weaver does have some connections to another university in Joplin, Missouri, he's also on the school board in Joplin. So he's a dedicated public servant as well. I just wanted to say thank you to him publicly, because as I transitioned into this position, he was the sitting faculty senate president, and really has made this first year very collaborative, and has been someone that I could lean to, and has worked with me very, very well, and welcomed me and accepted me into the community of scholars at Pittsburgh State. And so I just wanted to thank Dr. Weaver for that.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. Thank you for your leadership over the last year, Dr. Weaver, and I personally look forward to continuing to work with you in Southeast Kansas and in Southwest Missouri. So thank you again. Any other introductions from our CEOs? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to the chair report. As you all know, this is the final meeting of this fiscal year. And again, we'd just like to thank everyone in the room, at our institutions, at our board office, regents themselves, for another great year. I have learned in 4 years on the board that there is no normal year in higher education. And so there are always challenges and opportunities, but I appreciate all the collaboration over the last year. Also thank everyone who served as a chair of our system councils for your efforts to keep our system moving forward and maintain our focus on serving Kansas families, businesses, and students. And of course, this is President Flanders' final meeting as president and CEO of the board. We're going to be celebrating his service to the state this evening, but on behalf of the board, just wanted to thank President Flanders for your leadership on this board. There are so many accomplishments, too numerous to name, but our system has really, it's come a long way under your leadership, and I just hope you know how much we appreciate your efforts and your leadership. So big round of applause for President Flanders. And with that, turn it over to President Flanders for our president's report.
Thank you. I'm going to take just a little more time. You said they were too numerous to name. I'm sure going to try to name them all. No, I'm just, no, it's been it's been the honor of my life, and it's been great to really have created some long-lasting friendships working in this position, and getting to serve Kansas and Kansans and even some folks from out of state that have come to our institutions. You know, the growth strategy for Kansas, there's only a couple entities that recruit students to Kansas. And, you know, one of them is the military, and we have a great military presence. And we built a really high quality military portal. There's still a lot of work to be done there, but to transition folks from the military into higher ed and be sure that they can complete on time and get credit for some of their experiences in the military. If you ever get a chance to visit one of our bases or the post at Fort Riley, and certainly the War College or the Army U rather, it is incredibly impressive. And so that's been a great partnership that we've had. You know, the student success initiatives and increasing state financial aid, we didn't have much state financial aid. We've increased it almost 300%, and it's made a difference. On-time graduation rates up 9 percentage points in less than 5 years. You know, I looked at that with our team and said, holy cow, it actually worked. I mean, like, it worked. So much of the work that you all do is for 20 years from now. And this actually worked at speed. And it wasn't easy to implement. Any initiative that's happened, there has always seemed to be some pushback going in, that it wasn't that people didn't want to change practice necessarily, but doing that and following research-based practices, and part of that what kickstarted that was President Muma saying we need to look at the National Institute of Student Success and have them benchmark our programs. And the board did that and then followed through on the activity there. It just really worked. I'm also really proud of our two-year colleges, particularly in the career and technical education space, and what they've done with Senate Bill 155 and Excel and Career Tech programs, raising those from, you know, 3,500 students to almost 17,000 students has been really wonderful. And then embracing the system-wide core gen ed. We're one of the few states that have done that without legislation. Most states, the legislature just says you're going to have general education that's across all the institutions. Our leaders came together and were able to do that. And so that was exciting. And then re-upping the engineering initiative. We always need more engineers. The legislature's been a great partner there in helping to fund those programs. And again, we started with 875 engineers. The goals was 1,365 graduates. We've exceeded that goal, and we've continued to do that. And I want to see, I'm really anxious to see that continue, because for every engineer, that's a multiplier in the economy and creates economic growth. I am encouraged by the partnership we've had with the Kansas State Department of Education. We need to do more there. I met with the new commissioner, Jake Steele. I feel good about that partnership and being able to continue there. We need to continue to strengthen our literacy programs, and we need to do that in partnership with them and create a plan, because that's a crisis that we have in the state that we need to address, and it's not going to go away without action. And our universities know that, and will address that. And then there's our Pillar 3 initiative that we're going to hear some reports of today. Is really one that's unique to Kansas, where we have fully engaged with economic growth. And I don't mean economic impact. We all have economic impact just based on being an institution and a large employer in Kansas. But our institutions have engaged in economic growth, meaning they've recruited capital to Kansas and employers to Kansas and businesses to Kansas. And I'm telling you, that would not have happened without our talent pipeline. And so we've had a focus on that. We still have a lot of work to do, but here's what that does that none of our other initiatives do, is that helps Kansans that even didn't participate in higher ed, because we're going to bring even some sub-baccalaureate jobs to Kansas that are going to be better than the jobs they have access to. They may not have a degree, they may not have a certificate, but we're going to improve those economies. And I appreciate the institutions beginning to focus on that. We heard from the Secretary of Commerce. Secretary Tolan, Lieutenant Governor Tolan was very complimentary. He did tell us we had to work on a couple things. And one of those, we need to look at service areas. And it's always uncomfortable. So that's what you can do after I'm gone. But that needs to be looked at. It's confusing to business. We need to look at, see if we can do it in a better way. One other piece that I wanted to mention, and then I'll go ahead and a couple of them. One was the facility renewal program. We're doing it better than any other state, and I'd love to take credit for that, but it's your facilities folks, and it's our Chad Bristow that's leading that initiative, and they've put together all kinds of data that are now driving down insurance costs. We kind of struck a deal with the legislature. We said, hey, we'll put in money too if you'll help us as well, and they did. And so we were always investing about $60 to $70 million in deferred maintenance, and now last I looked, we're over $180 million a year. It's making a difference on the campus. You're going to see differences at the Med Center that are visible when you drive by. I see differences at Kansas State when I drive by, and differences in almost every one of our campuses as you look. And it's not just as we've begun the process of strategic demolition, we've reduced the backlog by demolition by 123 million. So we're making our footprint more efficient. We're on the right track there. I know it's hard to make the contribution. We did make that promise to the legislature. We hope that we can continue to do that and keep that deal going. And then the final thing I'd say is one area that I feel like we are just beginning to address that probably needs more attention from the board, and I know you'll talk about it in the retreat, is this area, particularly in Division I of collegiate athletics. And I don't believe that state assets should be sold, but that's the board's determination to see what to do there in terms of venture capital and that kind of thing that's entering athletics. It's a ever-changing world. It's harder and harder for athletic departments to raise those funds. Could there be some kind of state partnership or something? I think those are things that need to be explored, but I know the board needs policy in that area, and we'll be drafting that and sending it to you. So with that, I just say thank you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, President Flanders. Last standing committee, or pardon me, report before we get into our standing committee reports. Council of Faculty Senate Presidents. I believe we have representing Wichita State, Victoria Koop. Welcome, Victoria.
All right, great. Good afternoon. I'm super pleased to join you as incoming chair of the Council of the Faculty Senate Presidents. And I would like to thank the chair, the outgoing chair, Rochelle Rowley, for her leadership and all of her service this year. At this time, I have no formal report, but the council looks forward to engaging with the board and engaging with several important matters in this coming year and our collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping up and leading over the next year. All right, moving into our standing committee reports. Before I introduce Regent Johnston first, just want to thank Regent Johnston, Regent Dicus for chairing academic affairs and fiscal affairs respectively. I know that's a heavy lift, not only from a time standpoint, but just the gravity of the things that come before the committee. And just thank you for all the committee work that's happened over the last year, because I sometimes will have people say, well, you guys vote on some pretty heavy stuff at board meetings, do you have time? And the fact that they are thoroughly vetted by these committees before they come to the full board makes our job much easier. So thank you to both of you for your leadership over the last year. And with that, Regent Johnston, I'll turn it over to you for the academic affairs report.
Thank you so much. At the June 2nd virtual meeting, Basque reviewed a request from Southern California University of Health Sciences for a certificate of approval with degree granting authority to offer online programs to Kansas students. We approved placement of this item on today's board consent agenda. Basque also approved 3 new program proposals for placement on today's board consent agenda. Those are BS in Robotics and Autonomous Systems and MS in Marketing Science from Kansas State University. BS in Secondary Education from Pittsburgh State University was also approved. Vice President Jennifer Bondracki proposed new policy to comply with recent legislation requiring post-secondary institutions to award academic credit for ACT work keys credentials. Basque approved, and the policy is on today's board discussion agenda. Dr. Trey Hill presented the annual reverse transfer report. One of the items shared in the report was the fact that during academic year 2025, 206 associate degrees were awarded through the reverse transfer process. These are degrees that most likely would not have been awarded if it weren't for this process. At today's Basque meeting, General Counsel John Urey presented proposed policy defining DEI-CRT and a statement of understanding as required by House Bill 2513. The definitions have changed from last month to reflect feedback from various interested parties. Basque approved placing the definition and statement of understanding on today's board discussion agenda. Vice President Bondracki reminded Basque of the May 5th approval of the reduced credit baccalaureate degree process or policy, also called RBCD, and policy element recommendations. Since then, statements indicating there will be specific notation on the student's transcript and diploma were added to the policy. The revised language reverses that determination for the board. The recommendations and updated policy are on today's discussion agenda. And as always, thank you to Director Christy Dangermond for putting these minutes together with me. With that, that completes my report, and I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Regent Johnston. Any questions for Regent Johnston? Okay. Thank you again. Fiscal Affairs and Audit, Regent Dicus.
Chair Benson, thank you very much. The Fiscal Affairs and Audit Committee had an agenda call back in the early portion of June. We also met earlier this morning for our normal board meeting or committee meeting before this one. During that meeting, we received an external report, management report from AGH for Emporia State University with a change in campus leadership with no issues found by AGH in that review. The committee also looked at the board agenda items for today. The first item that we will present to the board today regarding tuition and fee proposals from state universities. Mr. Chair, your Fiscal Affairs and Audit Committee recommend approval of the proposals as presented in May at the first reading. Comments during our meeting this morning. The committee greatly appreciated the student engagement on this important issue that was provided in May during the first read, and we noted that the work that went into developing the proposals at each of the state universities and acknowledge all of that time and effort put in for that. Also, you will hear during our meeting today from Director Bristow regarding the state university's 5-year capital plans. That will be presented at the meeting, and the committee recommends approval of those 5-year plans. Lastly, items that have been on the agenda for this afternoon's meeting, items 6B3 and 6B4 relating to the university policies pursuant to House Bill 2560, and then also policy amendments for contracts, real estate, and facility approvals. We heard from Director Bristow regarding those and clarifying some of the guidelines today. We've heard back and had feedback from COBO, Wichita State, and board staff on those issues. Regarding that, and with a lot of the questions and comments from everybody, It is a recommendation of Fiscal Affairs and the Council of Business Officers that we table items 6B3 and 6B4 on today's discussion agenda and defer those for further discussion at the board retreat in July. Mr. Chair, that is the recommendation of Fiscal Affairs, and it was confirmed by all members of Fiscal Affairs and the COBO officers this morning. With that, that is a report from our Fiscal Affairs Board Committee meeting this morning.
Okay, thank you, Regent Dicus. And I know the business officers were all supportive of pulling those two items off the discussion agenda. Are all of our CEOs aligned? Everybody okay with that? No concerns at all? Okay. Well, with that being said, I will amend the agenda to remove discussion items. I will amend the agenda to remove discussion items 6B3 and 6B4 on policy guidelines and facility policy changes based on that recommendation from Fiscal Affairs and Audit. Any other questions for Regent Dicus?
Do I need,
Yes, Regent
do I
Wolfmore.
need to make a motion to do that or? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 Are we good? Okay. All right. Thank you again, Regent Dicus. Moving on to, let's see. Oh, we have the governance committee report. Yes. Okay. Yeah, Regent Wolfmore.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Not to be repetitive of what was said at the other meeting, but I think there was also agreement that we would discuss it at the retreat, which is, I think is a great idea. But that we would get any materials in advance, significantly in advance of that meeting, so that we can understand what you are suggesting in your plan. Otherwise, there won't be much of a discussion to be had. So I think that was part of our recommendation, that we get these materials far in advance, so there's no surprises to us at the retreat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Point well taken. Anything else related to fiscal affairs? Okay. Moving on to the governance committee report, it's fairly brief. This morning, the governance committee authorized the board president and CEO to execute a contract and associated agreements with the state universities to improve the board's system-wide data collection process. The committee then received Emporia State University's annual campus safety, security, and IT report. So the Emporia State team did a fantastic job of that, and we appreciated their presentation this morning. And that will conclude the governance committee report from this morning. Moving on to the consent agenda, would entertain any discussion related to the consent agenda, any items that need to be removed or any discussion. Yes, Regent Dicus.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Okay. We have a motion by Regent Dicus to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second? A second by Regent Parasker. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to discussion agenda. First of all, act on amendments to board policy on awarding post-secondary credit for ACT Work Keys credential, and turn it over to Vice President Bonds Racky. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Mr. Chair. This item begins on page 112 of your board agenda packet. And to briefly orient the board, legislation passed during the 2026 session requiring the Kansas State Board of Education to offer the ACT College Entrance Exam and 3 ACT Work Key assessments to students enrolled in grades 11 and 12. The legislation also required post-secondary institutions to adopt and implement a policy to use platinum, gold, or silver credential earned through the ACT Work Keys assessments as transferable credit toward the attainment of a post-secondary technical degree. In response to this legislation, board staff developed the proposed policy before you today. The policy was reviewed and approved by the System Council of Chief Academic Officers at its May meeting and by BASC at the June 2nd meeting. So at this time, I would ask that we display the proposed policy located on page 112 of the agenda packet, and I will briefly highlight the major components of the policy before taking any questions. Section A defines the institutions to which the policy applies. Consistent with legislation, the policy applies only to institutions offering the Associate of Applied Science degrees. Section B preserves institutional discretion in several important areas. Institutions retain responsibility for determining course equivalencies, program applicability, and whether awarded credit applies to general education requirements, technical courses, or elective credit hours. These determinations, though, must remain consistent with applicable ACE recommendations. Section 2 on comparable credentials. This section recognizes that institutions may choose to award credit for credentials other than ACT work keys, and if they elect to do so, the policy outlines the conditions under which those credentials may be considered comparable. Section 3 is on transferability. Credit awarded under an institution's policy must be recorded as credit for prior learning and must be applicable toward a post-secondary technical degree. Institutions are expected to ensure that awarded credit is transferable within the state to the extent possible and clearly document that for our students. Section 4 establishes minimum implementation requirements. Institutions must develop a formal process for verifying the credentials and mapping ACE recommendations to those institutional policies and coursework. Institutions must also make this publicly available to students. Finally, Section 5 recognizes institutional flexibility. Consistent with ACE recommendation, institutions may determine how best to integrate that awarded credit into the curricula, provided that the credit reflected demonstrated competencies, awarding practices are applied consistently, and policies remain transparent and, of course, publicly available. Again, as a reminder, the proposed policy was approved by SCOCO at the May 20th meeting and BASC at the June 2nd meeting. Board staff also support the policy as presented. Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, Vice President Bonzrek. Any questions? Any feedback? If not, would entertain a motion to approve. Okay, motion by Regent Johnston, second by Regent Parasker. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it is approved. Moving on, act on reduced credit baccalaureate degree policy element recommendations and amendments to board policy. Vice President Bonzraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item begins on page 114 of your board agenda packet. As a reminder, BASC approved the pilot policy element recommendations at its May 5th meeting, and a first read of the pilot policy occurred during the May board meeting. Following feedback received during the first read, the proposed policy language has been updated to clarify that the board will determine the notation used to identify the nature of the degree on the student's transcript as well as their diploma. The revised language reserves that determination for the board but does not specify the notation at this time. This was the only change made to the policy for today's second read. Should the pilot policy be approved, board staff would reconvene the RCBD work group this summer to develop recommendations regarding the transcript and diploma notations and bring those forward to BASC at the first meeting of the fall semester. Following BASC approval of the notation, institutions who decide to submit RCBD pilot applications would be required to indicate their agreement to use the approved notation as part of the application process. BASC discussed the updated policy before you and approved the pilot policy today at its meeting. I would like to briefly acknowledge and thank the members of the RCBD work group for their thoughtful engagement on this work over the past 8 months and their willingness to devote significant time and expertise to these discussions. As a final reminder, this is a pilot policy which requires a very rigorous review process through the board should an institution be interested in submitting an RCBD proposal, and that today you are not being asked to approve any particular pilot program. With that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Okay, and I would echo the thanks to the work group. I know this conversation has been really evolving for almost a year. So appreciate all those that have been a part of those conversations and getting us to this point. Questions for Vice President Bonds-Radke? Any discussion, any questions? If not, would entertain, yes. Yes, President Muma.
Yeah, I just want to bring up one issue, and it's not that Wichita State is against this policy, but I do feel like the particular item, it's in both of for the governance and the coordinating. I think it's item number 3, demonstrate sufficient market demand for the degree. I think it would strengthen it and give people more guidance if there was some additional language added like this, something around the lines of this, in fields where there is an obvious or emerging need to build a workforce. I think that would help potentially clarify for institutions who are wanting to develop a degree in this manner and not just any degree. That's a concern that I think some of the other CEOs have as well, just for consideration.
That feedback shared with Mask and in advance of the meeting? Or with board office staff?
We did have some brief conversations this morning, but that was during the BAS meeting, but we weren't at that meeting having that conversation.
Sure, if I can
Yes.
speak, I think the committee shared some of those concerns and that concern. I think part of the difficulty will be in seeing what the demand is. I share the sense that it'll be workforce driven. I think it makes sense from my vantage point to proceed with a pilot program and see what proposals come out of that pilot program apparatus. And I think that feedback is going to be very valuable in terms of how we examine those proposals. I share the sense of caution. On the other hand, I think there's a sense of wanting to move forward with at least a pilot apparatus to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, that's well said. Any other discussion? Any other feedback? Yeah, I think Regent Johnston's point is well taken, that I think this is a discussion that will continue to evolve. We'll continue to make improvements to it as we go along. But this is a good starting point. Any other feedback? Any questions? Yes, Regent Amar.
I just wanted to maybe reinforce or echo that this is something that we've been working on since, my notes go back to September, the Basque meeting and then the full board meeting. So this is something there was a work group, every university that cared to was represented. So, and this is the information, and we've worked diligently with Basque and all the provosts, all those involved. And what Regent Peter Johnston said is we've raised these concerns, but this has been something that been brought to us and strongly lobbied to have this. And so we're just going to try it out with this pilot program and see how it goes.
Yes, Regent Johnston.
Thank you, Chair Benson. I just want to add my thanks to the working group, all of those that were involved in this process. As VP Bonds-Radke said, it was a very thoughtful process, lots of experts. And I can tell you that it evolved as they went through and realized that, at first glance, something that we believe to be an opportunity can have its pitfalls. And so those are some of the very thoughtful discussions they had as we look down the road at where this will go. And in looking at those things, we all learned a lot about what this may or may not turn out to be, and whether it will be valuable to business and industry, and whether it will be valuable to our students. Those are the things that we need to determine with the pilot program. And I think that those are the things that we will be able to determine. Remember that, as VP Bonzraki said, we're not approving any programs here. We're approving a policy that says that you can bring forth a proposal through a rigorous process that will allow you to offer a baccalaureate degree that is less than 120 hours, but at least 90 hours. And at the end of that process, we can either say, we're not continuing with this program, we're going to modify this program, or what's the other one? Whatever the other one is. We're either going to continue, modify, or go forth as it is. That's the other one. Yeah, go forth as it is. But I just want to reiterate that, anytime we look at opportunities, there's always going to be challenges. And so I greatly appreciate the expertise, and I really appreciate the people on the committee helping shape this policy through their expertise, because I think that's really vitally important as we move forward. So thank you to everybody, especially thank you to Vice President Bonzraki, who has handled this with such grace and professionalism all the way through. So thank you to all.
And for those who may not have been here for the first read, you're also engaging employers and getting feedback from employers, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we are. That survey is being conducted this summer with over 3,000 employers within the state of Kansas, and we look forward to bringing those results back to BASC and the full board in the fall.
Very good. Thank you. President Flanders.
Yes, I think this is a new approach. It's a different approach. I'm anxious to see what employers say and how in demand this is. And the board may want to change their tack if they see that there isn't the demand there that they thought. I do think that what President Muma brings up, even though if it's not included, should be noted and can offer clarity as we evaluate whether or not there's truly sufficient market demand for the degree. I understand how the policy language can be rather broad, but really honing in on, does these specific industries really need this? Are they calling for it? Are they calling for more baccalaureate talent, or are they calling for actually the reduced credit hour baccalaureate degree? And those are, I think, two separate things. And I think that's what needs teased out here. So this isn't going to be certainly an easy process to validate the need for these, but I think it's necessary because there is a significant amount of risk if we just kind of develop them willy-nilly.
Sure. Agree. Any other questions? Any discussion? Yes, Regent Crocker.
I guess more of a point of clarification for me. I understand we're voting for this policy, but in the background information, there was the discussion about the 3-year pilot program. So we're approving the 3-year pilot program in addition to the amendment. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Get it on. Yes, that is correct. Our point was that there's no proposals for an RCBD that have gone through the pilot yet. So
Right, but at the end of the 3 years, revisit this to your point of whether we want to continue, modify this language or delete it.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All good questions. Any more? Any discussion? Any questions? Any motions to approve? Okay, I have a motion by Regent Johnston. Second by Vice Chair Mendoza. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you so much, Vice President Bonzraki. Next up, second read on State University tuition and fee proposals for fiscal year 2027. I know Vice President Frisbee is on hand to answer any questions. Pardon? Or did I jump over one? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. My apologies, Elaine. I jumped over John Urie. So we'll back up and act on. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That was not intentional. Yeah. Act on amendments to board policy to define DEI CRT for the purposes of 2026 House Bill 2513, Section 147, and to adopt a statement of understanding. That's a pretty important one. So my apologies, Mr. Erie.
Didn't mind a bit. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Part of the law that you just cited, which was passed last year, Section 147 of 2026 House Bill 2513, in part requires that on or before July 31st, the Chief Executive Officer of the State Board of Regents, in consultation with the heads of the post-secondary educational institutions, shall certify to members of the State Finance Council that for the 2026-2027 academic year, a definition of DEI CRT for use in this section of law and a statement of understanding establishing the goals of that section have been adopted by the board. So we had a first read last month. Following that, we had input from academic officers, the presidents, legislators, and others. And so we have a revised definition before the board today for consideration. And that definition is, for the purposes of Section 147 of 2026 House Bill 2513, DEI CRT means diversity, equity, inclusion, and critical race theory. DEI CRT course means a course whose course title, course description, or learning outcomes include DEI CRT related content. And DEI CRT related content means, with respect to DEI, content that intentionally establishes and promotes the preferential treatment of groups based on race, color, gender, ethnicity, or national origin. DEI CRT related content means, with respect to CRT, content that presents racism as systemic within laws, policies, or institutions and promotes acceptance of that viewpoint rather than presenting it as a subject of scholarly, historical, or legal study. Discussions of race, racism, or the history of the civil rights movement do not constitute DEI CRT related content for the purposes of this policy. This policy does not prohibit post-secondary educational institutions from complying with federal law or state law, including anti-discrimination laws, or from taking action against a student, faculty member, or employee for violation of federal or state law. And then finally, for a statement of understanding, for the 2026-2027 academic year, the goals established in Section 147 of 2026 House Bill 2513 are adopted as policy of the board. That definition was not easy to get to. There were lots of competing ideas and interests, but those have all been weighed and vetted. It was discussed at the System Council of Academic Officers this morning, meeting this morning. There was a proposed change there that was considered in Basque. I believe it's fair to say Basque approved moving forward with this as written. And so happy to answer any questions.
Okay, appreciate that context. Any questions for General Counsel Erie? Yes, Regent Wolfmore.
Thank you very much for your presentation. This is, as you said, very important, and I'm sure it will come under scrutiny from groups. I was just curious if the presidents and chancellors are supportive of this language as it is written. Yes or no?
I guess, thank you. I guess I just reiterate the conversation we had this morning and really in whole, yes, but I think the risk around all of this and the risk that you all have been charged with creating this definition is because nobody else will, right? And so, and goes to the difficulty that was outlined in really trying to get to this. But the reason it's so important is because anywhere there's ambiguity, there's real risk, right? And so I think from our perspective, really, there was one word that we had exception with because I think it creates ambiguity. And that's the word promotes versus required. And I think promotes can be defined a whole lot of different ways. And if you're a faculty member trying to teach a course, I think that creates ambiguity, and certainly is going to create ambiguity for somebody trying to evaluate that. I think that was our comment this morning at COPS and I know they had that conversation at Basque as well, but other than that, I would say yes.
Okay. So everyone else feel the same way, that it's generally accepted?
Chair Benson?
Yes, please.
If I might address the chancellor's concerns, that was discussed in Basque, and I believe I'll have Regent Johnston visit about that discussion because I feel like he has an excellent grasp on how this works, so.
We'll see.
And I didn't want to
Speaking of
do
no one else will, no, I think, first, obviously none of us we're not a legislative body. The law is what it is. The law requires us to make a definition. So we are required to do this. This is the work that is being done. I'm really very appreciative of the general counsel and everybody on all the committees and all the campuses that have had some opportunity to be part of that process. Crafting definitions out of a committee is no fun in any context, and it is not fun in this context. So I'm really very appreciative of the work. To me, as I said this morning, the critical sentence of the definition is the sentence that reads, discussions of race, racism, or the history of the civil rights movement do not constitute DEI, CRT related content for purposes of this policy. From my seat in the bleachers, from my experience and training, that is not vague and that is not ambiguous, and that should be of comfort to our clinicians. It is very important to me that professionals be able to study difficult topics, this difficult topic, from the lens of history, as a historian, as a political scientist, as a sociologist, as a law professor, what have you, as a medical school professor. That's a concern that we heard in committee this morning that I think is a very good concern. The law itself is not vague either. If a course is ensnared by this definition, and I'm asking the general counsel to correct me if I'm wrong, but if a course is ensnared by this definition, that course may be taught. It simply cannot be required. If the course is required, then a waiver may be sought, and the waiver comes to this board. I think that's correct, is it not?
That's my understanding, yes.
All right. So I think that's an important headline understanding to have. A comment was made this morning that I totally agree with. It's very difficult to come up with perfect language. Sometimes in the law business, if a settlement or a mediation produces an agreement that no one likes, that might be a pretty good agreement. And I think that's a little bit how I feel about this definition.
It's very well said.
Thank you, I think.
Any other questions, any other feedback? Entertain a motion to approve. Okay, I have a motion by Regent Johnston, second by the other Regent Johnston. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. I would echo Regent Johnston's comments. Thank you, General Counsel Yuri, and all those that worked hard on that. So thank you. Now we will address second read on state university tuition and fee proposals for fiscal year 2027. Obviously, first read was at the May meeting. And so Vice President Frisbee is here to answer any questions that we may have related to the tuition proposals.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I might, just a
Yes,
few
absolutely.
reminders. Thank you. Want to just state for the record, there are materials starting on page 135 of this month's agenda. And just highlighting that it is KSA 76719 that bestows upon the Board of Regents the responsibility to assess tuition at the state universities, as well as you have adopted board policy honed over the years as to how that will be done. This is not only a tuition question, but it is also a student fee question. So would hope that any motion made by a regent to approve this includes that clarification that it is the tuition and student fee proposals from the 6 state universities today. Each of the state universities are proposing some targeted increases, but they are also, what I want to highlight, this is paired with internal cuts and some reorganizations and restructuring for them to be able to tackle the pressures from inflation and reduced state support. So this is a combination, not only a student tuition increase that's addressing financial pressures at the universities, it's a combination of things. So the tuition increases themselves do not fully close the university's budget gaps. They are clearly in their proposals, which are of course published on our website and available to the public for the past month. They are trying to address student affordability issues and being very mindful of their competitiveness against their neighboring state universities and competing programs. So with just that few comments, I'll take any questions if I can.
Okay, thank you, Vice President Frisbee, and I too appreciate not only the focus on affordability, but also our institutions engaging the student leaders as they discuss this. I think we heard at the May meeting that the students felt like they had an ample opportunity to provide input into these tuition proposals before they came before the board. So I just appreciate the extra effort that our institutions put into making sure the students were engaged. So I know fiscal has obviously considered these as well. But any questions, any feedback related to the tuition proposals? If not, would entertain a motion to approve.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we approve the state university tuition and fee proposals as presented by the 6 state universities for fiscal year 2027.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Regent Dykes. Second by Regent Crocker. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you again, Vice President Frisbee. Act on capital improvement request and 5-year plans for fiscal year 2028 in the university system. Director Chad Bristow. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Benson. Fiscal Affairs and Audit Discussion Item number 3. Materials could be found on pages 142 through 153. And this is to act on approval of the capital improvement requests and 5-year plans for fiscal year 2028. State agencies' plans are due to the division of the budget each year by July 1st. And the only changes since the first read last month at the May meeting are minor updates made due to board-approved capital project amendments and a facility naming request. Just one reminder is that these capital plans include both funded projects as well as aspirational projects that may be executed if funding becomes available. And so the recommendation is for approval of the plans as presented.
Okay, thank you, Director Bristow. Any questions? Any feedback? Okay, if not, would entertain a motion to approve. So motion by Regent Johnston. Second by Regent Parasker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Director Bristow. So the next 2 items were moved from the discussion agenda. So we will move on to acting on Data Quality Awards System. And I believe Director Ferrier. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This item is on page 176 of the board agenda. Thank you, Chair Benson and Regents, for this opportunity to recognize 2 institutional research officers for demonstrating excellence in data quality. This is the 14th year of Data Quality Awards. The board has statutory authority to collect data from the 33 public post-secondary institutions and to maintain a uniform statewide data system, which we call the Kansas Higher Education Data System, or KEDS. The institutional research officers also submit data to the federal IPEDS data system, and KBOR serves as the statewide coordinator for that system. KEDS data informs the board and policymakers to make data-driven decisions, calculate funding, and is used to fulfill federal or state reporting obligations. System data also drives public dashboards such as the Kansas Higher Education Data System, KeyStats, the Building and Future Strategic Plan Dashboard, Transfer Kansas, Kansas Degree Stats, and the Kansas Information Training Program, or KTIP. Institutions submit data throughout the year. However, the most comprehensive data collection, the academic year collection, is uploaded through KBOR's automated validation system by each institution. This system helps institutions cleanse and validate the data. However, institutions gathering the data and correcting validation errors is a highly comprehensive effort. Annually, we recognize these two individuals, and we ask the board to recognize two this year who have demonstrated superb quality of data and timeliness of submissions. Other factors considered for the selection of recipients include compliance with security policies, support for research, support for board objectives, support of colleagues, and staff leadership among peers. The first recipient is coming to us via Zoom. Jennifer, can you maybe bring that up? Okay. This recipient has only been in her role for 2 years. This institution's data submissions were early, and the recipient was proactive in explaining validation warnings. The IR team used a collective and collaborative review process, and the recipient gave immediate and well-informed feedback during that review. Her iPad's data submissions were clean and on time. At this time, we'd like to recognize Lacey Simon from Hutchinson Community College, and she is the Director of Institutional Research. Lacey wishes to convey her thanks and appreciation to two other members at Hutch, Rex Cheever, who is the Executive Director for Information Technology, who was previously the Director of Institutional Research, and Olin Williamson, who is a data analyst. We thank Lacey and her team for a job well done. Do you have anything to add, Blake?
Well, I would just offer on behalf of the board, congratulations, Lacey. Well deserved. We appreciate your service, and we're honored to get to honor you. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
The next recipient has been at the institution for 35 years and is a proven leader in supporting data decisions and questions that face the board office and state universities. This person consistently ensures institutional data is clean and iPad submissions are on time and accurate, and the institution was clearly prepared for the new iPad's admissions and consumer transparency supplement collection, in which institutions were asked to submit data 7 years previous. This person is also leading the definitions and requirements for the tenure and workload policy data collection, and for that I am very thankful to her. At this time, we'd like to recognize Gwen Bowling. She is the Associate Vice Chancellor for Institutional Research at University of Kansas, and she's accompanied by Corrine Bannon, who is the Chief Strategy and Data Officer and Vice Chancellor at the University of Kansas. We thank Gwen and her team for their quality and consistent delivery of data and her contributions to the board office. Please come forward for Regent Benson to make this award.
Well, again, congratulations to both Lacey and Gwen. They've demonstrated exceptional professionalism, delivering timely, high-quality data that not only helps the Regents, but our other leaders as well make strategic decisions. And we congratulate both of them, along with their institutional research teams, for their outstanding efforts. So again, congratulations. Next up on the agenda, we have our Pillar 3 reports. I think it might be a good time for a 10-minute break. So we'll break and reconvene the meeting at 2:40. All right, we will reconvene the Board of Regents meeting. Next up on the agenda is the receiving of the Pillar 3 University reports. And for those of you that either attended or watched the March meeting, you saw where the research universities presented their Pillar 3 reports. And today we're going to focus on the regionals. So I appreciate all of the work that's gone into this. And first up from Pittsburgh State University, President Newsom.
Thank you, Chair Benson. I'm gonna first use my privilege of newness here, hopefully maybe for the first and last time, and just say I hope that what I'm presenting to you is what you want out of our Pillar 3 report, because this report was submitted very shortly after I arrived in Pittsburgh. There is a significant amount of other material that is in the formal report that you received. And then when I asked for them to put together the slide deck, I kind of put together what I thought were the highlights in that report. So would be more than happy to take questions if needed after this, if I don't provide the right information. So I want to point you to this slide first because a lot of the content of what I'm going to present today is illustrated on this slide. And this is, I don't know if our little pointer will work here, but this is the 4th and Broadway area of Pittsburgh, Kansas, which is the heart of our downtown. And the two buildings that you see here are our Block 22 buildings, and those were the two developments that were done 3 years ago. We've got just over 100 students living in those facilities. We've got restaurants and coffee shops and businesses in the first floor. Our SBDC is on the first floor. Our foundry and makerspace is on the first floor. And those are really important buildings I'll get to in just a second. But and part of that project is also the Kels College of Business, which is here, 55,000 square feet, new, modern College of Business. And this picture was taken within the last month. So you can see where we're at. We're going to actually do the ribbon cutting on that property on August 11th. Faculty and staff will move into that building starting July 6th. We're actually in the furnishing stages of that building. And then the building back here on the backside is the Best Hotel. And the Best Hotel is a 13-story property that was built in 1926. So we're celebrating the 100th year anniversary of that property. It's been offline for a number of years and really in poor condition. And as part of Pillar 3 or our economic development, we have brought that building back. We'll have 60 students living in that building. And as of yesterday, we had 56 of the 60 beds reserved. The bottom floor will be expanded space for our SBDC. There is some retail, potential restaurant, convenience store space as on the first floor, as well as we'll move the Center for Reading there, and they'll have an expanded space with a front door to the city. And it's kind of important as we talk about Pittsburgh, Kansas this year, we're celebrating our 250th anniversary. We have a party actually Saturday, a citywide party Saturday. You're all invited to Pittsburgh, Kansas to celebrate with us. But this is an important area, and it's really important that we look back on that because not only are we celebrating 100 years with the reopening on August 11th of the Best Hotel, which was built by the citizens of Pittsburgh, Kansas, really got together collectively. They couldn't find a developer 100 years ago, and they built this building. So it means a lot. And then 4th and Broadway is literally when they staked off the city of Pittsburgh, Kansas, the middle stake for the city was right in the center of this intersection. And the 4 men that started Pittsburgh, Kansas said, let's all go out there and build a building on each corner of that. And let's start a city in Pittsburgh, which we all know has a great and great history with our state. And the 2 buildings that are here that we brought back to life that were really, again, in disrepair, great home for a lot of 4-legged furry animals, probably, and whoever else could get through some plywood that was blocking windows was a great, but we brought those back and we've made them really big parts of our community. And really it's amazing. We're celebrating 250 years and we brought 2 of those buildings back with a large group of partners, donors, friends, university, state, federal government. And proud to say that last year alone, these two properties, there's actually 4 buildings in that complex, generated about $2.3 million of taxes for the state of Kansas and about $1.3 million worth of taxes for the city of Pittsburgh. And we know that we're going to see with another 60 students living in the area, another 300 or 400 in the Kels College of Business, we know we're going to just see that exponentially grow in terms of the benefit to the city. So that's kind of our pillars and our, well, I'll tell you, I hope I didn't go too far. Yeah, I did. Push a button and it kills you there. So our pillars are for pillar 3 are growth, investment, expansion, collaboration. A lot of those things are what lent itself to these projects at Fourth and Broadway and for downtown Pittsburgh and our growth down there. And it's based on research and innovation, the downtown district growth, investments in cybersecurity on campus, data analytics, increasing that capacity, expansion for our entrepreneurship program and specifically our small business development center, which we're really strong. And then collaboration, of course, across housing, workforce development, and some literacy initiatives through the Pittsburgh State Center for Reading. So with that, why am I pushing the wrong button? I'm just not technically inclined here. There we go. So with that, measuring the regional impact since 2019 to last year, it's created 686 jobs. It's created 96 new businesses through those projects, $16 million in research grant expenditures, and we're growing that through some projects we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But really the big number is $348 million of capital infrastructure improvements, specifically related to Pitt State University. And that number even grows when you talk about Chair Benson's work with the Chamber of Commerce and our Economic Development Council in the city and our city commission, our county commission, state government. So over the last 10 plus years, just under 10 years, we've seen about $1 billion, and that's $1 billion with a B dollars of capital investment in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and the university's accounted for a little more than a third of that, which is nice. And I see Chair Benson shaking his head, so I'm getting my numbers right, which is appreciative. The other thing is that we really, gosh, why am I having trouble with these slides? I apologize. We really are focused on, as a university, workforce readiness and this conversation about developing programs that will produce the workforce of the future for Kansas and our region. And that is academic programs. We have identified 20 programs at our university that will drive enrollment. And those are enrollments that are based on demand, student demand, growth capacity, institutional investment, and then this need for the workforce going forward. We also have a foundation of literacy at our campus with the Center for Reading and working on dyslexia and helping our Kansas K through 12 system of schools do better in terms of teaching reading and teaching literacy on our campuses, because we know literacy is truly a big part of success for students when they get older, and keeping them on track in terms of their capacity to read and learn and understand and comprehend. And then partnerships. And we've really focused, even in the last 10 months, on building better partnerships with K through 12 superintendents. We have an initiative right now with all of our Southeast Kansas community colleges and all those presidents to bring us together so that we can become more collaborative and less competitive. And that's something that I'm looking forward to developing even further in the next year. And then entrepreneurship and small business and capital access. Our Small Business Development Center is very active. Over the last year, they have served 361 unique clients, started 28 businesses because of those relationships, and a capital infusion in our region of about $1.65 million. We also were very fortunate as a university to be part of the Forge Grant, which is a block grant for $350,000 from the Department of Commerce to launch a foundry network and be able to disperse that money to small businesses and other folks that hire workforce and improve the workforce through equipment purchases, tech improvements, and job creation. And then we talked about Block 22, and really excited about Block 22 and what we call Guerrilla Rising, which is the Kels and the BEST projects. And excited about those because it's about $105 million of capital investment in downtown Pittsburgh. And happy to say that because of the great friends that we have, not only with the supporters of the university, but also through our federal state government and some grants, that will all be done with no debt to the university. And it will actually be a revenue generator in the future. And then the last thing is that we have place-based economic development, and our place-based economic development is, like I talked about, those two projects. $53 million for the BESS and the KELS, and then you add another 50 million for Block 22. That's where you get to that 105 roughly number. And then there's a couple of really community organizations that I've become a part of, and that is Point Forward. And Point Forward is a organization or group in Pittsburgh that really is just trying to move the city forward through development, community development corporation that has invested in some housing, some childcare, and a lot of initiatives that make our city better. And then there's the Heartland Rural Innovators Initiative, which is we're selected for an 18-month economic development program that identifies resources and gaps in some of those strategies that we can help to move Southeast Kansas. Can't push the right button, sorry. Success starts with access, and we were rewarded because we were one of only 33 universities in the nation that got 2 classifications from the Carnegie Foundation, and that is an opportunity college or university, which means that we have higher than other comparables in student access and earnings, and we have higher research activity. And access and earnings goes to the cost of and affordability of our education. And then research activity is, of course, the amount of money we spend on research. And part of the research is 3 new projects that are actually underway, and they are in the point where they're actually going vertical, all 3 of them. The Eagle Pitcher Technologies Project, which is a battery plant, which is a collaboration between the city and the university on our campus. They should open within the next few months, I believe. I think they're finishing out their parking lots. KBI Regional Crime Lab is a new 55,000 square foot crime lab that's on campus, which will be a partnership much like they have at Washburn. The second floor of that building will be truly dedicated to classroom space and internship programs for our students in criminal justice. The building will also house our campus police office. And that's another $50+ million project. And then the project at the top is a prove-out facility, and that's an $18 million expansion of the Tyler Research Center, which we think will be a acceleration lab, concept lab. It will be a lab much like many of the spaces you see on the campus of Wichita State, which is the model we're using at scale to provide an opportunity for new businesses to come to Southeast Kansas and develop their products and then monetize those into contracts. Those 3 opportunities are going to bring about 80 new jobs to the region, and each of those jobs has an average salary of about $65,000 a year. So our economic engine idea is academic and industry alignment, active economic development, community investment, and business support, and then partnerships that drive innovation through opportunity. So we're really excited about what's happening in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and really excited that Pittsburgh State University is a big piece of that. And if you haven't been to our community lately, you need to come and see all the great things that we're doing together. One anecdotal story is that we had a group from South Dakota in town a few weeks ago, and it was a group that got a grant to study basically a town and gown relationship, which was a best practice. And they got a grant, and they could go to one place in the country to study this or to get an idea of what it looked like in terms of what success looks like. And they chose Pittsburgh, Kansas. So they brought a bus load of people from the university much the same size as Pittsburgh State, Division II school, much like us, town, much the same size as Pittsburgh. They brought a bus full of business leaders and community leaders and university leaders. And they spent about a day and a half with us and tried to figure out what our secret sauce was. And I think we all realized really quickly how fortunate we are that we have a great relationship among all those parties, because we didn't see that from our visitors as much. And the fact that all of these developments, all these things that have happened have been about 16 years in the making. And it's just because we built really, really strong relationships, and we're all headed in the right direction with the right end game in mind in terms of economic development and driving prosperity in Southeast Kansas. So with that, I'll open it for questions.
Thank you, President Newsom. Questions for President Newsom? Yes, Regent Wolf Moore.
Thank you very much. I have a couple questions, and you can phone a friend if you.
Yeah, good, I will.
Do you happen to know if the population of Pittsburgh, is it increasing? Is it stable?
I may phone a friend, but I would say it's increasingly stable.
Okay.
That work?
That
You know, we have housing needs because we're seeing an influx of new people into Pittsburgh, but it's not necessarily growing our population. It's just an influx of people that, quite frankly, have a different housing need than the housing capacity in Pittsburgh. We have a need for some housing that will serve some mid-range manager, director level folks. And so I think that that's probably whatever population decline we're seeing because of other reasons. We're seeing a population increase, which is making us pretty relatively stable.
Okay. And then, is your, all the work you've done on Broadway, and I've seen some of it, but it's been a couple years. Is it causing sort of other businesses on
Yeah,
Broadway to
yes,
upgrade?
yeah. It's a ripple effect in two ways. One, we're seeing new restaurants open. We're seeing buildings specifically across the street from the Kels, there's a new restaurant. We're seeing buildings that are in that area being bought and renovated and restored. A lot of historic tax credits used for the best project in Block 22, and so there's a model out there, a best practice model for some of our developers and some investors in the town. I think the biggest thing we've seen is that property values have significantly increased on Broadway, and that's been a big asset to the city in terms of increased valuations of property.
Well, great job to all of you. And then a request, you mentioned the importance of literacy. I know you all meet with legislators from time to time. Whenever possible, if you could put a plug in for the blueprint for literacy, we're going to be right back at that next year, trying to get it funded again and hopefully a little more money. So that's
As the son of a English teacher and the husband of a English teacher, I can't avoid not doing that.
okay, good. Give them my thanks.
All right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, President Flanders.
Yes, I just wanted to congratulate Pittsburgh State and President Newsom because when I'm going to be visiting Pittsburgh State here this next week and want to see the progress of those facilities that we approved here. And I had a couple of citizens tell me, they said, we're concerned that there's not as much parking downtown as there used to be. And I thought, I've been to communities where there's plenty of parking. And so that's a great problem to have. So I knew that it was turning when we got that feedback.
Well, thank you for that. I can get up here and pump my chest and be proud of it. I can't take a whole lot of credit for it because I haven't been here that long, but Steve Scott and Dan Ship and Doug Ball, who carried the baton in between myself and Dr. Ship, they're the ones that really were the genesis for this project. And then Chair Benson and all of our community leaders really deserve all the credit. And I will say, as Dr. Bryant says, we don't have a parking problem in Pittsburgh. We have a walking problem.
This is true. Yeah.
Chair Benson?
Yes, Regent Johnston.
If I may, and I don't know that this is correct, but I think it is. My understanding was that the last census, Crawford County was the only county in Kansas that grew in population outside of the urban counties. And I can tell you from being in that area my whole life, it really is due to the secret sauce, as you called it, of the university, the city, the chamber, and the community leaders all having their eye on the same outcome. And just as you said, and that is to increase prosperity and the way of life for people in Southeast Kansas. And you've done an amazing job, so.
Well, thank you for that. And I appreciate the fact that Pillar 3 is a priority for the Kansas Board of Regents and for all of our universities. We did a heat map when I got there so that we could kind of look at what is our real mission as an institution, as a regional public. And so we did a heat map of our area. And if you do a heat map of poverty in Kansas, the hot points are Southeast Kansas. I mean, we are right smack in the middle of the highest poverty counties in the state. And I think that Pillar 3 really is one that speaks to the fact that our true mission as a regional university is to do the things that we can do to break the cycle of poverty. And when you're doing things like bringing 385 million and almost $1 billion to that part of the state specifically, and then we're educating more and more students, we're going to have I probably shouldn't say this out loud yet, but we're going to have our largest freshman class this year since 2013. And our residence halls are full. And it makes a difference in Pittsburgh, Kansas when Pittsburgh State University is doing well and vice versa. And these are just elements that are indicators of our true commitment to helping make Southeast Kansas better and specifically breaking the cycle of poverty in Southeast Kansas.
Yes, Regent Dykes.
I have one question. Famous Pittsburgh area chamber of commerce. You can't see it. It's
Ironically, it's
right
out of the
over here.
picture.
Yeah, right over here. Yeah.
Widen it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm lobbying for a corner office right there in the corner of the brand
Well,
new
These,
$30 million building.
this is a 2-story apartment and it's got the best views. I think that's the tallest building in Southeast Kansas. I don't know the reality of that, but it's pretty spectacular. It took me about three different professional opportunities to be able to afford an apartment like the ones we're building at the Best Hotel.
Any other questions for President Newsom? Well, thank you again for your leadership. Next up, from Emporia State, President Baker.
And I'm going to ask Greg Schneider to present that on behalf of ESU.
Okay.
I have to follow that.
Good afternoon, Greg.
Good afternoon. I'm glad you call me Greg, or else I'd have to correct you and say if you call me doctor, it's Hair Dr. Schneider with a K. Or if that's too Germanic for you, my rap name is Fat Daddy, P-H-A-T Daddy, P-H-D. So
Greg,
one T.
We'll have a party for him.
All right, so that's the good news in my report. I can say that Pitt State is a model for us about how we need to approach economic development at ESU and in Emporia. When Ken Glasscock, who's in the back, talked about the laggard in the 6 state universities, I think in December or January, he mentioned that, and I quickly chased him down and said, we're working on it. We've had so many people in economic development over the past couple of years. We had 2 key people leave without really telling me where the projects were, what was going on, and I inherited this in January and have had to do the Pillar 3 report with reporting that we don't have job creation, we don't have businesses started as a result of the fact that Emporia State was late to the party in some respects of focusing on this issue. We don't produce the type of graduates that our town looks for in terms of industry, manufacturing, those sorts of things, which we're working on and we're trying to correct. And part of that correction is going to come from the fact that Emporia itself has suffered extremely dire economic losses in the past year. And this is a turning point, I think, in not only Emporia's sense of where the community has to go and what kind of development it has to do economically, but also in its relationship with the university, which has always been kind of difficult, to tell you the truth. I wish we had the type of relationship that Pitt State has with the Chamber of Commerce and with the other economic developing groups in a city like Pittsburgh. We have not. And it hasn't been for lack of trying, and I'm not blaming the city or blaming those economic development organizations. There's been difficult town-gown relations, which are now being repaired. This started a few years ago and is continuing under Matt's leadership. We just had a lunch yesterday with key economic development figures in the town. We talked about what the university could offer them and what we could do for the city and the community, and that's going to continue. So 1,000 job losses at least in the city of Emporia just in the past year. Tyson closed, so that plant's sitting empty. It's difficult to find anybody to move into it. So that's a dark spot in the city, 600, 800 jobs, I think. You had losses like Hopkins Manufacturing, which was a long-time manufacturer, about 300 jobs. Michelin laid off about 100 workers or more. The town thought that the future was going to be continuing manufacturing jobs, which need a workforce of high school and tech college grads. And sometimes ESU grads in business and professional areas, but not in the type of specialized manufacturing manufacturing that perhaps the city could attract if it focused more on what the university could offer. So we're setting our minds to the fact that this is the future for Emporia. We have reps on every major development group, and Emporia is a strange city. Of 25,000, there's like 4 major development groups in the town, sometimes working at cross purposes. We have the Chamber of Commerce, who's had an interim director now for a year. We have the RDA, the Regional Development Authority, which has had an interim director for 3 years. We have Main Street, which has a very dynamic leader who we partner with very well, Casey Woods. And Emporia's Main Street has always voted one of the best main streets in the country for good reason, because a lot of that has been the energetic work of the Main Street organization in improving not only the look, attracting businesses, retail, and other things to that particular area. We partnered with Main Street for the Forge grant that the Department of Commerce allowed us to do, $700,000, which we basically allowed Main Street to use to enhance entrepreneurial development. They have students from Emporia State as well as faculty now engaged in learning entrepreneurship and starting businesses. That's not magnified yet in any results, but this is an ongoing project that we're focused on. Our cyber program has finally been approved last year, as you know, and we're thankful for that, but that took a while for us to get going. So sometimes it's our fault, sometimes it's the lack of partnership between the city and the university, but we're working on the problem and we're going to go forward focusing on the solutions necessary to make Emporia a different city than it has before in terms of economic development and what the university can do to provide it.
All right. Thank you. Questions for Greg or the Emporia State team? Yes, Regent Johnston.
I've talked a little bit about this in the past, but I'm just curious to get your perspective on the level of partnership between the university and the local healthcare community. I have a high regard for the healthcare community in Emporia.
Yes.
It's a good hospital, and hospitals are themselves economic engines, and there are some synergies to be had there. I see President Baker nodding his head. Just wondered if you could speak to that a minute.
Yeah, we work with Newman Hospital quite a bit. We have, the new nursing building. I put that in as our main source of, I guess, the $19 million that's cost to build the nursing building, which was funded without any state aid or bonding. This is going to produce the graduates necessary for Newman to thrive and to expand. Newman's just been named a rural transformation hospital as part of that program.
Right.
We work very closely with the leadership at Newman to enhance not only connections between the nursing program and Newman, but also in other ways that we can advance healthcare access and in Kansas and in the region. Stormont Vale's moving in. That's been a big controversy, but they just broke ground on their facility in Emporia because Newman's a community or a county hospital. Stormont's a threat to them because it's private and they don't have to provide emergency services and other sorts of things. So there's a controversy about that too, that took a while for Stormont to break ground because we had talks with Stormont about what we could do with them in the community. Our nursing students could get into Stormont and Topeka and elsewhere about 4 years ago, but we're still ongoing discussions with them as well.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad.
That's an area we're working on.
I think that's an area, that's an industry that I think can be very helpful to the university, and I think the university can be very helpful to that industry. Competition is competition. It's good. That creates more opportunities for partnerships. My own heart is with the community hospital that provides emergency services in that community, but certainly those are opportunities for partnerships.
Yeah, and we're looking at all those.
Regent Prasker.
Yeah. If I can make it work. Greg, my question is, we had probably a month or 2 months back, Lieutenant Governor Toland came in and asked about certain universities' initiatives for economic partnership with the business community. So have we done more improvements in terms of how we can make it easier for businesses to approach us when they need to approach us?
You mean with Emporia or?
With Emporia State University.
Well, one of the dilemmas for us too, last year, we lost our Small Business Development Center. That was merged into, it was the Small Business Development Center in a lot of respects. I had data for it that I don't have with me, but it did produce similar types of jobs and opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities as Pitt States did. Maybe not as many, but certainly a good chunk of them in the region for a while. but the director of it had an extended illness. It wasn't operating the way it should have. There was we even tried to fund it ourselves, but the SBDC was taken away. We're the only Regent university without one now. So what we're trying to do is establish more of an entrepreneurial network for both our students and our faculty that could lead to business build-outs, and we're going to work with Main Street primarily to help do this. So why have an entrepreneurial center on campus per se if we have a partner in Emporia Main Street who already does this sort of work and can instruct and teach and develop those sorts of small business opportunities?
Right. Thank you for that, answering that question on the entrepreneurial side. But I'm also referring to a business wanting to, work with university to hire our graduates. Do they have a good, easy access to the university to be able to say, I want to sit down and understand what talent is coming out of your university? What do I need as a workforce? And that communication.
We haven't had a business approach us like that. We certainly we hear constantly that our workforce, that the workforce we're producing is valued by the businesses who employ them. The former director of Hopkins, who's now kind of was interim head of the RDA, has said that repeatedly. We have many businessmen in town who say similar things. I think if we had such a thing, we could develop it, but I'll let Matt obviously has an answer here.
Well, I don't think I have an answer. Well, actually, I do. I don't think we have an easy way for our businesses to do that yet. We've had that conversation. We have had a manufacturer in town reach out to me, and we don't have a streamlined way to get access to our students just yet. So no, the answer to your question is no, we don't have an easy way, but we are working on that.
Thank you.
And it's two-pronged, right? Yesterday, we had this luncheon with our 4 major economic development leaders, along with our city manager, our deputy city manager. We have 2 meetings scheduled coming up in the next 6 weeks to talk about our future strategy, their future strategy. We're also talking about, we've already invited Chair Benson to come and give us his presentation on how Pittsburgh has done great work there. And so we're looking both outward into that community, and we become an integral part of Emporia. We also have that internal part of our career services. Again, through budget cuts and realignment, things get dropped a little bit. And so that's coming back, or will come back in the future, related to how do we get that easy access. We're not there yet, but we are working towards it.
Right. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry. Go ahead, Regent.
The easy answer would be Greg's email, but hey.
Thank you for the report. Thank you for the honesty. And what can we do to help as a board?
I think a lot of this work has to come from us. So, I mean, we appreciate the fact that the legislature and especially the Commerce Department, I should say, is working to enhance these sorts of programs. I mean, we have the Kansas Entrepreneurial Program, Kansas Collegiate Entrepreneurial Program, which they're just starting. And we have meetings with them soon in July. Commerce has been on us about what is our approach? What is the main? I mean, we've had a lot of leadership in this area. I'm just new to it myself. So in some way, and that's not an excuse, but we're finally, I think, dedicating more and more time to this problem. We need a solution that encompasses the whole community as well as the university. And until we get that we won't be able to do the sorts of things that Pitt State and Pittsburgh have done, which is really amazing stuff. We can do it. We just have to get to that point, and we're working on it. Now, the good news, maybe, I know it's controversial. Matt said we could take credit for it if it goes ahead, and then if it doesn't go ahead, we can blame the city or something. And that's the data center project that's now being proposed for Emporia. This is a mammoth 1 gigabyte, I think, data center. It's going to be one of the largest ones in the nation. It doesn't have a vendor yet, but it will be built over the next 5 to 8 years if it goes forward. Signs are good, but there's lots of signs that aren't good in town about no data centers. There's lots of controversy about these, of course, through the state. Recently, a group of people that we loaned the bus to went down to Pryor, Oklahoma, which is kind of the biggest one in the nearby region that Google controls, and saw for themselves what this could do for the city and the community. At 500 jobs, perhaps, by the time it's done permanent, high wage, university jobs, tech jobs. So this will be beneficial for both Flint Hills and Emporia State. So there's a coalition of people who are backing this. We're backing it so far. There's meetings coming up They're trying to be as transparent as possible to deal with the concerns about this in the community. But the hope is that this will go forward soon. Now, that's a long-term answer. In the short term, the RDA and other groups are working on other projects that they can bring into Emporia, and hopefully this will include the university as well. That's the goal.
Well, for what it's worth, last weekend I spent some time with one of the interim directors that you mentioned, and he offered up that the outreach from the university into the community is noticed and appreciated. And I remember when President Baker came to campus for the first time, he said it all starts with a conversation. And so relationships and results are kind of the downstream effect. It all starts with conversations. So we appreciate all the work that the Emporia State team is doing to build those relationships and starting those conversations. Any other questions for Emporia State this afternoon? Okay, thanks so much, Greg. Last but certainly not least, President Mason, Fort Hays State University. I like that handoff. Come on down, Ben Shears.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, we're going to see if we can back this up. You're good. Not quite that far. Well, we're getting there. Ben Shears, Vice President for Economic and Workforce Development at Fort Hays State University. And should have a different slide at the beginning there. It's maybe the button's fault, I'll say. Yeah.
I blame her.
So we may need to add training for the clicker to the retreat agenda for this summer as well.
Only got 3 buttons. We'll go ahead and start right here. We'll go ahead and start right here. And we'll circle back to the ability to download the report a little bit later. But really pleased to be here. I will mention with in the case of Dr. Schneider, I was a student in his classroom back in the day, and I would have never imagined calling him Fat Daddy in the classroom when I walked in. And when I see him still, I refer to him as Dr. Schneider. So, you know, those things stick. We had the pleasure of hosting several of you this last year on campus at Fort Hays State, and really appreciated the chance to talk about the good work that we were up to. In that time between now and then, we've been busier than a short-tailed calf in fly season. So we're cooking. We've been really busy out there getting some odds and ends done. When Vice President White reached out, she said, hey, Ben, for this presentation, send us the PowerPoint that you've got. Can you keep it between 5 to 7 minutes? And I said, I will absolutely keep it under 10. So I promise you that we'll be under 15 today. So one of the things I wanted to start off with right out of the gate is really just to kind of frame the conversation around what we're doing within economic prosperity with our mission as a regional comprehensive university. And I've got a couple thoughts that I kind of just scribbled down that I think are kind of significant for the work that we're doing. One of which is what makes a regional comprehensive special is not what it lacks when compared to our other counterparts across the system, but what we bring to the table. What is our mission? How do we align? What are we designed to do? Our job, our responsibility, our role as a regional comprehensive is to be deeply embedded within the communities and in the regions that we serve. And that's the work that we're leaning into. The other piece is for us to serve as a regional economic anchor. That's not just within the community, and we'll have some examples and stuff that I'll show you here in a few minutes with regard to data. But I'm going to focus a little bit less on data today and probably a little bit more on stories, which for anybody who knows me is no surprise because the stories are always kind of fun. But hopefully will illustrate a little bit of the work that we're doing. One of the things that we're really leaning into is becoming more and increasingly intentional with the communities that are in our backyard. Right, we've had, and you know, Fort Hays as a strong global partner. We do a lot of work in the global space. We do a lot of work in online education, and we have a lot of accolades and experience in those spaces. And so it's really exciting for us to be able to lean in now and begin extending our conversations and our work with communities right in our own backyard. In the case of my role, I'm relatively new to this. I'm in month 11 for Fort Hays State. So as I say, I've got one more month that I get to use the new guy card. And then once that passes, then I'm pretty well done. So we'll continue to lean into this and see what we can do. But the role itself was, I think, a response. Dr. Mason and our administrative team creating this opportunity for this particular position to really lean into what the requirements and the needs and the work that can be done within Pillar 3. So by the numbers, I'm going to cover just a few things. So we'll cover a few highlights here, one of which is 67%. In case you're not familiar, we have what we call the First Destination Survey, which is the survey we do after all of our graduates leave campus. They're off doing great, amazing things. About 78% of our graduates actually fill this out, which is significantly above national average, I might mention. And all that credit goes to the good work of the folks in our career development office who are on the phone, on text messages, on LinkedIn, any way that the carrier pigeons, whatever way they can find to connect with our graduates, they're doing. Out of those group of students, 67% remain within the Kansas economy. That's pretty significant. 2/3 of our graduates that walk across our stage at graduation remain in the Kansas economy. It's pretty significant. One of the next pieces that we're really focusing very intentionally on is building apprenticeships. So we have leaned into starting off with an IT apprenticeship. We have a new one with Snap IT. We have our very first apprentice that just signed up. It took almost a year of legwork, meeting with students, working with our staff to get them on board. And so we have our very first student apprentice working with Snap IT as the intermediary for that program and that project. We're hoping to see more as time continues. The next piece that we're leaning into now is our student employment. When we look at our group of students on campus, we have hundreds of student employees that we have. And within my responsibility, when we talk about workforce development, it's got to start at home. We look at the students that choose to come to Fort Hays State University to study. Why won't they also choose, as many of them do, to become employees at Fort Hays State University at some point? So we're leaning in on the student employment program, and we are working with Fort Hays Tech North Central, who is our technical college affiliate, who will serve the role as our intermediary for our student employment program. So I've been meeting with Wesley Winch over here, our CFO, and our HR office to figure out how do we plant those seeds within our own student employment office to be able to cultivate our own students to fill roles that come up that are available at the university. So growing our own. The next piece that we're working on is the teacher apprenticeships. And those actually have been going for a little bit of time between our folks in the education department and the State Office of Registered Apprenticeship. We're seeing some really good stuff coming out of there with over 70 apprentices currently in the pipeline for this coming year. So there's some good work happening there. Visitor spending. By golly, all of us bring people to town, whether that be for campus tours, events, athletics, the whole 9 yards. 23 million is what is estimated annually as the impact for our area based on the work that we're doing. We're going to give you a quick run through some numbers here by the affiliation. So these are the combined across the university as well as our 2 technical college affiliates, which cover a very significant swath of land in northwest and north central Kansas. 287 combined economic annual impact as far as $287 million rather. Payroll affiliation across the whole thing, $43 million that we breathe into the regional economy, pretty significant. Talent pipeline, a little over 9,000 graduates across the 3 institutions. And I will say this, the tech college graduates, where we talk about 67% for us, the tech colleges tend to run in the 80s. And so the vast majority of students, very, very significant number of students, end up staying within the Kansas economy, with the vast majority staying in Western Kansas. Graduates headed to the market, a little over 3,500 annually across the 3. Proximity matters. So what I want to talk about a little bit in this particular case, I'll key up a couple short stories to kind of reinforce this. But one of the things I think that is so significant about the work that we do across higher education in the state, and there are sectors that I think proximity is a little bit closer. I think the community and technical colleges in the system have a much closer proximity to the communities in which they serve. I think that's a good thing. And I think that's something that across the university system, we can watch and we can observe and we can learn from as well. We're leaning into those spaces. When we talk with businesses and we talk with community members and we talk with organizations across the region and across the state that reach out to higher education, what they don't need from us is another study. They don't need another feasibility study. They don't need another economic impact study. They don't need us to pull this information and hang on to it and not get back to them. They need us to roll up our sleeves They need us to walk through the field, and they need us to be responsive. We need to step off campus. We need to step into the office, the shop, the combine, whatever it is, and engage. That's what they want, that's what they need, and that's what we should be responsible for doing. And that's what we're building at Fort Hays State. We want to be responsive, and they need us to be able to bring resources to bear to be able to help them with the challenges they have ahead. A couple quick stories to illustrate this. I'm calling him Bill for his own anonymity. But Bill is one of our regional ag suppliers who his business exists within about an hour, hour and a half of our campus. He reached out, it's been about a month ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, sent an email off to our entrepreneurship department where we do a lot of work, good work, with our students on campus in starting and launching businesses. Bill reached out, he said, my business is barely afloat. This is the dream business that my dad and I built. It's going under. How can you help me? So the entrepreneurship department forwarded it over, said, can you help? So we leaned in and we jumped in. So when we have those, to your question earlier, I serve as the front door for the university. So when a business reaches out, whether I'm the answer or not, I open the door and I hand it off to whoever it needs to be in the university, or we lean in and deal with it how best we can. So when Bill reached out, I went down and got him on the phone. We talked for just a little bit, and I drove down to see him. We sat in his business in the back of the shop on a couple metal folding chairs. By the way, I did not show up in a suit. Those are boots and jeans occasions. We sit down and we talk, and one of the things that I learned from him very quickly was this business that he launched in 2022 was the dream of him and his dad. 6 months after launching, his dad starts to show some cognitive decline, dementia. Flash forward 4 years later, he's sitting in a situation where he is working another side job for a grower in the region who needs a truck driver. So he's driving truck for this guy. His dad has now progressed to the point that he's in a memory care unit. So he's driving back and forth to the home to help take care of things that are arising. And those of you who have dealt with dementia understand sometimes that there are behavioral issues that crop up as time and the disease progresses. So he's wrestling with all of these things and managing his own farm, plus the business. And he's a one-man show. And so he's on the ropes, he's against the ropes, and he's not sure what to do. So we sit down and we talk through some things, and we talk through some of the website needs that he has. He needs some leads development. He needs a new marketing plan. He needs a new brand, all of the things that are technical fixes. So we talk through those pieces, and we can help him with all of those. Those are no problem at all. But the reality of what he was needing was somebody to sit down and say, you got to carve out time. If you love this business, you got to hang up the truck driving. You got to dig in. You got to lean in if you want this business to continue. I asked him, I said, how have you developed the relationships that you currently have, the partners that you currently have that are keeping you afloat? He said, well, I drove around and I talked to farmers around this county and around this region. And I said, well, you got to get your keys out and you got to drive around. That's what you got to do, because we can drive as we can help. We have great resources through the affiliates and through the university to be able to help him. But unless he carves out the time and can find the time to be able to lean in and build those relationships with clients that come his way, there's little we can do. So we're keeping that conversation going. We're in text messages, communication, phone calls, back and forth, and we're going to bring him on campus in the fall. He's committed to trying to lean in and carve out more time, work less for the other farmer, and do more to lean in and build those relationships that he needs. I'm his business therapist. That's what he calls me now. So I'm his business therapist. We're going to jump into the next one here, which is Agility Health. If you haven't heard about the conversation around agility, I was never excited about hospitals or hospital beds, particularly until I toured Agility's manufacturing plant in Ellis County. We got a call several months ago that said, hey, we're being attracted to the research triangle. We need some help. We're considering staying, but we need a good proposal. So local economic development, the university, as well as the Department of Commerce came together. We had 2 weeks to put a competitive proposal together to keep them in the region. Put the proposal together, dropped it, and ultimately they ended up staying. So we're really pretty pleased with that, but that's just one particular piece. Now we're continuing the conversation, which is how do we help them become a stronger regional employer? They have since purchased purchased the buildings that they were leasing before and looking to double their workforce size over the next 5 years in partnership with Commerce and some of the incentives that they're using to keep them in the state. So there's some good things kind of developing in that front. On the 17th of July, we have a bus full of employees. I sent the email out yesterday. And in the last 24 hours, we've almost filled the bus on employees that are going to go along with, and we're going to go tour the agility plant. Part of the importance of their increasing their visibility in the community is for us to also aid in that visibility. So excited for that. High Plains Mental Health, when they launched the Crisis Intervention Center there in the community, they needed some help. They had 30 open positions, which grew into 70 open positions over the last year. And so what we were able to do is we were able to convene our faculty members. So we got all of our psychology and some of our social work faculty together. We got our folks from the technical college in town together, and we got them all around the same table, sitting down, talking, what are the needs that the organization needed? And so being able to build those bridges is leading to a couple different things, one of which is the creation of a new associate degree pathway that North Central is working on. That's going to be a very intentional pathway from the tech college to the university to help build that pipeline, because our goal is this: we can have community members work at High Plains Mental Health in this role at the age of 18. And so we can intentionally build them through that process, through the tech college, through Fort Hays State, and ultimately away we go. Winding down, Ellis County Heritage Center. This is one of those that we have that was a little bit outside of the norm of a typical workforce or economic development angle, but this is one where the door was knocked, we opened it and walked in. They're creating a new heritage center over in Victoria. If you're not familiar with Victoria, it's got the Catholic church with the big spires over there, the twin spires, beautiful, beautiful facility. One of the things they're doing is creating this center to be able to drive information and create information about the folks that settled in this area, the Volga Germans within the region. The challenge that they're having is this: they've got these stations in a children's area. They need 8 stations that they're wanting to develop, and they needed some help from content experts to be able to build things that were interactive, engaging, involved technology, and they didn't know what to do. So they reached out. We brought a bus full of employees over to see what they were doing and to be able to talk with them from across campus. Those were faculty and staff that came in. And so this fall, we have a committee now that has started up because higher education is really good at committees. We got committees down pat. We have a committee that's going to come in and they're going to work with them. They've already got some ideas brewing. We have a committee that's going over and they're going to help them not only construct, but design everything from hands-on activities for the students to be able to work with through augmented reality. We have all kinds of things that they're working on. I was able to step back out of that project because my role was to hand that off. And so that's one of those things that I think has been really pretty interesting for us to be able to be involved with. That's really about driving local culture, bringing people to the community, to the area, which ultimately does feed into economic development and economic prosperity. On here on this last page, you can pull down the full report. Please, I would encourage you to do that. You can see quite a bit with some new Carnegie classifications and several of the other items and data points that my colleagues mentioned as well in their reports. But if nothing else that you come away with, just understand from our perspective, we're leaning in, we're creating proximity. We're out and about across Western Kansas. My job is to be out of the office more than in the office. And we're bringing that information back. And I'm very pleased to be able to say that I get the opportunity to work with our provost very closely with what do I hear out in the field from business and industry partners, and what are we doing to bring that information back to the classroom to make adjustments within that area. And with that, I'll pause for a moment and stand for any questions.
Yeah, great presentation. Any questions for Vice President Shears? Yes, Regent Johnston.
Chairman, thank you. I'm curious, the Stroop Hall expansion in the nursing and allied health. Can you give us a sense, and maybe I should know this, but can you give me a sense of, from a numbers point of view, how much capacity you all have increased or that you all have in the nursing?
I'm going to look at our provost here for just a second, but I can tell you this: as we're
15 or
looking for.
Yeah, I just like some sense of how much of an increased capacity you've experienced.
You bet. So a couple things I'll kind of mention while we're going to pull down some data for you. But the other particular piece with the Stroop Hall addition is it also relocated our allied health programs, our medical imaging and those into that same facility so that we can take advantage of shared space. But over the work that we've done Fort Hays is one of the largest nursing providers in the state of Kansas, as you probably well know. This particular addition has allowed us to double our capacity. So
Okay, that's what I know.
I can give you that, but we can certainly get you specific numbers
No, if you're doubling,
back as well.
yeah, if you're doubling your capacity, I mean, you can employ as many nurses as you can graduate,
For sure.
as you well know. So sometimes economic prosperity and economic development is really complex, and sometimes it's not. If you can figure out a way to graduate more nurses, you can employ more nurses.
And I'll say this, a shout out for our nursing faculty have been working very closely with our community and technical college partners as well on the ADN to BSN pathways and some hybrid options and stuff with those as well.
No, that's great. I appreciate the work and I appreciate the answer.
You bet.
Other questions or feedback for Vice President Shears? I'll also point out, I appreciated your previous slide before this one with specific companies that you have helped, because I think sometimes we in higher ed, we rely solely on data to communicate impact, and data is very helpful. But I think also being able to specifically tell a legislator, a member of the general public, a member of your community, this business is here because of the university, or we helped this business grow, really puts a face to the name. And I think it helps us make the case for how higher ed helps even those outside those on our campuses. And so I appreciate the specific examples of companies that you've worked with.
You bet.
And clearly you get bored in your job every day. So we can see the passion that you have for this job, and that is what is needed when you're working with businesses that are going up and down in the industry right now in the market. And the more we can hold each other, the better we can get through the situation we're all in. The higher education connected with business and on whether it is entrepreneurship or small business or large business. But you've given examples for us in different segments. I see that like individual, small business, community. And so you are spreading out the impact in multiple areas. Of course, your team and you. My point also to point out is the impact that we are bringing in, make sure you're collecting data around it. Like, what did the business need? What did we provide other than being their, advisor? And what else did they require? That would be a good teaching point or data point for us to go back to the university and say that how do we grow our talent to address these when they join the companies?
You bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Thank you.
Any other questions, feedback for Fort Hays State? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again. And I would be remiss before we leave this item if we didn't recognize and thank Kent Glasscock for his leadership on Pillar 3. You've certainly been a partner of higher education in our state going back to your days as Speaker of the House. And I thought that with your leadership of the Pillar 3 liaisons, it was a great mix of supportive, but still challenging to not only make sure that the activities that are occurring meet the Pillar 3 expectations, but that we're also communicating those successes. So Kent, thank you so much for your leadership on Pillar 3. Greatly appreciated. Okay, moving on, we will receive the State University's Artificial Intelligence reports. And here to present is Chief of Staff Kelly Oliver. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Benson and members of the board. This item begins on page 211 of your board materials if you're following along. It is for your receipt of the State University's reports on current initiatives related to artificial intelligence. As you may recall, at the board's September meeting, the board established a goal asking state universities to submit reports detailing AI-related activity in order to identify best practices, encourage collaboration, and help position Kansas institutions as leaders in AI-driven education and workforce development. In response, each university has submitted a report describing their current and prior work related to AI, including, where applicable, instructional strategies, academic programs, research, workforce and economic development, their current initiatives and policies and infrastructure. Although each university's approach reflects its own mission and strengths, a few common themes did emerge from those reports. First, institutions are working to build AI literacy in their students and their staff and their faculty, and recognizing how an understanding of using AI tools and how they can responsibly use those tools. Second, universities are moving to form governance structures, task force, and policies on their campuses. And finally, third, the reports show that state universities are approaching AI not only as a teaching and research topic, but also as a workforce and economic development opportunity for the state. I've also in your issue paper highlighted a few of the specific projects that each university are doing, but each university's full report then begin on page 213 of your agenda. And I would be happy to answer questions, but if you have specific questions on individual state university reports, I will probably defer to the presidents and chancellor.
Okay, thank you, Chief of Staff Oliver. Any questions, any feedback at this point? Yes, Regent Parasker.
So I have to be honest, I didn't go through everything yet in detail, but I've gone through and skimmed through some of the proposals and some of the activities. There are LLMs, there's a way we are engaging these LLMs in different areas of our operations, whether it is education, teaching, or research based. Are we using LLMs and actually testing them on reasoning? How are they reasoning certain challenges? This is more of a generic question. Don't answer me, but think about it, right? How is that LLM reasoning itself? How is it finding issues with its own findings?
Okay.
That is the most important thing that we have to keep in mind. Anything that is spit out by an AI doesn't necessarily mean, quote unquote, ChatGPT. That doesn't mean that it comes from the right sources. So just wanted to give that as an advice and a suggestion.
Correct. Okay, I would agree.
Any other questions, any other feedback? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we actually now have an AI presentation from the KU School of Business. And not to put any undue pressure on our presenters, but I believe that Regent Dykus saw this presentation earlier this year and really encouraged us to add it to the board agenda because it felt like it would be beneficial for the board to hear the same information. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Patrick Downs, who is the Associate Professor of Management and Entrepreneurship, and Jordan Yoakum, the Chief of Staff of the School of Business. Welcome.
Confirm. Good. Well, as a proud KU alum, it's a joy to be here. I'm really honored to be before you today. I'd like to thank thank you for this invitation, and also Dean Wintoki for commissioning this task force, which I've shared over the last year. Every time I open my news app on my phone, I see a headline along the lines of AI being the downfall of higher education. And so you might think that this is a sunset here in this picture. It's kind of the end of the story. We had a good run. And when I started this task force, in some ways, I think I had that belief that it was an existential threat to us. But I have come around over the course of a year of debating with my colleagues to see this as a sunrise. And I do think this is from the north, and I think the sun is coming up from the east here. So actually, I do think there are brighter times ahead for higher education, even in this new AI landscape. So my goal today is to summarize the nature of these conversations that we've been having in CapFed Hall. And like all of society, our discussions have ranged drastically on these topics. We have lots of debate and lots of diverse opinions. But let me walk you through where we stand so far. I've got 3 things we'll cover. We'll start with the global context of AI as the task force saw it in the School of Business. Then we'll move on to the guiding principles that we settled on that formed our recommendations for the business school. My classroom is highly discussion based, and so if you have questions or comments, please feel free to interject. It's unusual for me to talk for this long of a time at once. Right. So where we landed in terms of the global context of AI, there are many, many models and definitions of what AI is and isn't. There's some technical definitions. Then there are a variety of tools surrounding AI and LLMs and their accuracy. There are a number of predictions around how AI will affect society. Some of these range from highly optimistic to highly concerning. I'm sure you've come across many of these, as have I. We settled really on a few core assumptions. We think that technology is here to stay. We think it will continue to change and it will accelerate in how quickly it changes. And therefore, the school's response has to be technical, cultural, and maybe most importantly, iterative. We didn't think we could solve something in 1 year of conversations that would resolve business education in the context of AI. So with that context, here are the guiding principles we settled on in the school. I'll walk through each of these. First, AI amplifies the importance of human judgment. In a world where content is suddenly unlimited and cheap to create, we actually think the valuable, scarce skill moving forward is an ability to critically evaluate content. I think this is what Regent Prasker was just suggesting. And we think business education can be central to that value, and more broadly, liberal arts education in terms of judging what good looks like in this new world of content washing over us constantly. Our second principle is we think AI should support human endeavors and not substitute for it. There are many applications for this. The way we talked about this primarily, we know that students can substitute their own learning for AI, and that's a real concern that I think society faces and that we face in the business school. And so we're taking an honest look at all of our assignments to make sure that if AI can complete this without students demonstrating skills, then maybe that assignment needs to be redesigned. There are also a number of tools around faculty giving feedback to students and providing grading, and we're encouraging faculty to use those cautiously. We have kind of a wide policy around some faculty will lean out and some faculty will lean in, and I'll get to more of that in just a moment. And lastly, we think experimentation needs to be protected, broadly speaking, in the business school. So we've got a dynamic technology. It's going to move quickly in ways that many of us can't predict. And I'm not a biologist by any means, but I do know that organisms who best fit their environment are best suited to survive. And so we know we're in a dynamic environment, and we therefore know that we're going to need to experiment on the frontier of this environment. And what that meant for us as we discussed these ideas is that faculty are going to need some kind of hold harmless agreement for good faith experimentation around how they can use this in the classroom, how they can use it in their research, how they can use it to effectively run and administer the university. That obviously has a number of implications that we'll get to more here in a moment. We reviewed all of our student learning outcomes for the business school. So there are 4 for all of our undergraduate majors that are in the catalog. I might summarize them this way: communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and knowledge. There's more to it than all of that, but that's a simple summary. As we looked at these and we debated, do we delete them? Do we add? Do we modify? As we looked at these, we said, actually, these are really important still in an AI context. And maybe more important, critical thinking is still key to applying AI in business, in organizations, broadly speaking. It can still support communication and influence. Maybe you can't substitute, or in some ways, it needs to be thought through carefully. We know that human-human collaborations and human-AI collaborations are going to be part of our new daily lives in organizations and businesses. And students who can use AI to improve organizations are likely to have a leg up. So one of the reports we came across, PricewaterhouseCoopers did a survey of CEOs, and about a little more than half suggested, this was last fall, a little more than half reported that their investments in AI had yet to reveal any positive returns. And so there's this K-shaped thing happening with businesses where some businesses are very good at implementing the AI and are experiencing gains, and others are not, and it's just a cost center. And so we think that we have a real opportunity there in the business school to learn what those things are, to produce the science that helps us understand what makes an organization using AI more effective, and then teach that to our students, and ultimately to have those students go to work for Kansas organizations. The curricular recommendations that we made to Dean Wintoki as a basis of these principles sort of reflect these ideas. So we didn't overhaul the curriculum. We did debate it. We are faculty. We're pretty good at debating. We tend to disagree, and we like disagreeing. And so we had a great time considering whether we throw our curriculum out the window, and we ultimately decided, no, the curriculum makes a lot of sense still to us, tweaked with some content surrounding AI. And so we see this as a progression of applications of AI in business. So to Regent Presker's point, the AI fluency to us is, do you know the tools? Do you know how they can be biased? Do you know the risks associated with the content they produce? Do you understand the ethical implications of those tools? And then what we see happening is students experiencing more of the applications within their specific discipline as they move into the 200 and 300 level courses. So in my course, I teach a people analytics course and an employee compensation course this fall. And my students this fall, I'm experimenting this summer, taking my own medicine here. My students this fall will build agents that will help them make decisions about a fictitious data set around employees as one of the exercises that I expect that they could bring value to for their future organizations. And then there's an integrated judgment kind of piece to this. In the capstone course, which is Management 498, we're going to ask students to wrestle with questions of business strategy, ethics, societal implications of AI at a high level. So we do think students need exposure to these things, but we don't think it's an overhaul of our curriculum. All right, so this is also a bit of a change management initiative. And so we made some recommendations to the dean about how we might go about these changes. I won't belabor these. I'll just cover two briefly. The first one is incentives. One of the challenges that we heard, you can imagine a pre-tenure faculty member worried that they are either going to use, misuse, or not use AI when they otherwise should have, should not have, or should you have done differently. And so we need to make sure that our incentive systems are all aligned toward this idea of experimentation if we're going to adapt to these new technological changes. The second one, access. This is a really interesting and very difficult question to solve. There are technical implications. There are also procurement, economies of scale. We've talked a lot about, is there any single tool that we think faculty need? And the answer to that question is resoundingly no. What we're finding is that faculty are doing a number of different things with LLMs and with other AI adjacent tools. I'll give you an example. One of our faculty members used AI to build a software that helps instructors who are teaching large format classes to analyze all of their student feedback, which we do at KU on a handwritten form. He deployed that to a server. This server is not AI by any definition, but it's a cost that comes about because of AI. And that's the sort of thing that's not, we would like faculty to have access to those AI adjacent tools, not just to a single Microsoft Copilot license. That doesn't answer sort of the question of what faculty are trying to do. And so that's one of the really thorny issues about this. How do we manage that from a risk, from a information security standpoint, and making sure that we're using these in wise ways. All right, so Jordan and I spent a few minutes trying to think about what would be our ask for this group from the KU School of Business. And here's broadly what we came up with is the most helpful thing we think we need from a policy standpoint are policies that are flexible rather than prescriptive. There are legitimate reasons that students and faculty might lean out, and we would like to make space. There are classrooms that will go analog, so to speak, as a result of this technology, because that's what's best in the student's best interest to learn this content. There are other classrooms that will lean in and will use this technology at a very high level. And so we need a policy that allows faculty to make those determinations at the lowest possible levels. And we've heard from employers that they want students who can bring AI capabilities into their organization. So some of these students we've talked to have said things like, in an interview, they've been asked by prospective employers to tell them what they can do with AI or what they've done with AI. And so we've been using the language of providing students with a portfolio of AI experiences. That obviously presents some financial and technological challenges, but we think that's in the student's best interest and ultimately the state's best interest as well. Let's see. I will close kind of where I started, I think. The business school faculty recognize and take seriously that this technological change is affecting all organizations. And there's as much discussion happening in CapFed as there is in broader society. But I've not once heard in the hallways that students no longer need critical thinking, communication, or influence skills. And if anything, I've become convinced that our students need these skills more than ever, and that our opportunity in higher education to provide those things is maybe more important and more potentially impactful than it ever has been. So with that, I will close for questions, and thank you again for your time.
Questions, feedback?
And
Regent Johnston?
I do, if I can get my microphone on. Yeah, just a couple.
Yeah, and I'm happy to go back.
So one, I think in some cases, I think in many cases, the reason your students are getting asked that question in those interviews is because the managers don't know
Exactly
what AI can do
right.
for them. So they're truly asking,
Yeah.
because we all have that bias that young people must understand this. What I seem to see, certainly in the law business, is that manager level, more experienced workers believe they should be using AI, and they have been given budgets on the assumption that they must use AI, but they don't know how. And so they're directing their frontline people to use AI, but there's not a lot of intentionality. So my question is, are there outreach opportunities? It's a leading question. I think there are.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything with businesses, with industry? Because I think there's a population of mid-career managers that could benefit from all of our campuses and all the expertise that you all have in the AI arena. And I'm just curious as to not just your students, but your alums, your local businesses. As we talk about economic prosperity, that seems to me to be an economic outreach opportunity.
Yeah.
Speak to that.
Yeah, this was a big conversation with the Dean's Board of Advisors in April, and that we got a similar feedback from them is how can we help? They want to know, all of these industry alumni, how can we help? What do you need to know? The management area in which I teach hosted our first industry roundtables around this topic earlier in May. And I expect those initiatives continue. Those are also going on in the other disciplines. I know that supply chain and operations were also having similar kinds of events. We've talked about other ways this looks. Do you want to add anything from the task force?
I'm not sure if you're asking specifically about sort of executive education kinds of things where we're helping
Kind of am, yeah.
mid-level or upper level managers. And we've actually experienced exactly what you've described from some of our industry partners, those that are connected through our Dean's Advisory Board or otherwise. But we've also experienced the other extreme where businesses are leaning into it and taking an approach like what we've described and allowing their employees to experiment with and figure out how AI can help them, because they're the closest to the work.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out what these tools can do to improve the things that they're responsible for. So as Pat described, this sort of K distribution of folks that are asking students to come in and save their organizations, and folks that are asking students what they know because they've already got an idea of how they want to use AI, and they want to make sure the students are as prepared as the employees are having. So it's an interesting dichotomy, and trying to figure out where to meet people in that vastly varied environment has been a difficult thing. And trying to figure out, because it's shifting so quickly, what expertise we can provide that isn't already being trained by AI itself has also been a little bit difficult.
Thank you. And then just one other question, if I may. So the other piece of it, it seems to me, AI supports good judgment. I get that. I agree. It does not it can, unfortunately, it can replicate good judgment.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how early and how often, again, it's a leading question because I hope it's early and I hope it's often, are students grappling with the ethical challenges of the technology?
Yeah.
It does not substitute for judgment.
Right.
And yet, again, in the law business, sometimes it's really easy to just take that research product and say, here it is, Your Honor. And we all see the news items where that's not, that doesn't go well. You've still got to do the detailed spade work that we learned in law school years ago. So can you talk about how early that ethical piece is introduced?
Yeah, our discussion on the curriculum was as early as possible. So Business 110 is a first year course. The students don't always take it in their first year, but by and large, they do take it. There are exceptions as they are filling out their curriculum. The way this conversation if I characterize what the task force has talked about, the way this conversation might emerge is some version of understanding the risk reward with using AI. Right? Because there are cases where we may want AI as society, we may want and accept AI making certain decisions. Obviously, people are currently with self-driving vehicles, right? Like there are cases where, and whether or not we want that as a society is a whole question we could debate. In fact, I would like to. I've got all afternoon. But the risk reward of and the ethical implications of these needs to happen early. Yeah, we totally agree. Yeah. Also, this AI fluency part for us is partly of self-interest. We would like to set expectations for students in being wise about how they decide to use AI. They have some agency in how they're in their own college experience, and despite our best efforts, there may be moments when they could, in theory, substitute their own learning for using AI. And we're going to try to create systems that discourage that, but we also need students to know the implications of their own decisions using AI. Right?
I believe Regent Parasker had a question.
Okay, I have a question and then a statement.
Great.
Question is, has KU or any university in Kansas dealt with ML and RPA?
So I know that in the School of Business, we have a handful of researchers who are working on ML topics, and to your earlier comment about assessing reproducibility and the actual reasoning itself of LLMs. I don't think that's a central research area in the School of Business, although I would expect other parts of the, I don't want to put Provost Malfi on the spot, but in the School of Engineering, it's probably.
Have you guys worked with robotic process automation or machine learning?
So we have researchers in the School of Engineering, who I am sure that they are dealing with the machine learning.
Yeah.
Robotic, I need to check back in.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, my statement is AI is not new.
Right.
AI has been in use since 70s. I don't want to age myself, but about my age. So what we are dealing with right now is artificial narrow intelligence. We are in that era with LLMs. The technology improvement is in the chip industry, not in AI industry. But what's coming in future is, of course, you probably would have heard AGI and ASI, artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence. That's where we are going ahead, getting ahead. But my question here is, it's great that we are teaching our students how to think critically and understand what's the solutions and tools they can use. AI is true partner from industry perspective and also the education perspective. Without both, it's hard to get to where we are, because it'll speeden up the process in which they are trying. But if you're going in the wrong direction, it'll take you there faster.
Yeah.
So I think we should also have risk engagement in this, because if you do not analyze the risk associated with where we are heading, until and unless you have spent a lot of money and lost a lot of time, you would not realize how much you have damaged in the wrong direction. So that could be a suggested.
Appreciate that. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I believe Regent Crocker had a question.
I think not nearly as heady of a question, but I'm gonna, so Regent Johnson kind of stole one of my thoughts, but as we just heard about the Pillar 3 presentations, I think as you think about what you're doing in terms of students and the outreach, incorporating that into your Pillar 3 conversations, I think would be helpful. I know there are a lot of small, medium-sized businesses in Kansas that just don't have the resources to figure this out. My other question is, you've done a lot of effort here, and this is great, and I appreciate this, but very clearly you've, again, spent some time with this. Are you having conversations with other departments and helping them through this process as well? Or is there any interaction? I mean, obviously engineering is pretty engaged in it, but other disciplines that might benefit from the work you've done on campus?
Yeah, this year, the scope was for the business school in particular. And so we kept it pretty narrow to that. And honestly, we had our hands full as it was trying to wrangle ideas for this. I know that, I don't want to put Provost Malfi on the spot again. He's got his own task force.
Yeah, so it's a broader conversation at the university level. And before my job as a provost, I was the dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And we spoke about this at the Dean's Council. And there is ample collaboration going on. We have 2 degrees being proposed at the bachelor's level. At some point, you may make it to K-Board, one from the School of Engineering, one from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. We have a certificate in machine learning and AI in the School of Engineering right now. So the economy is scaling up. And it's all interactive. People are talking to each other.
So like one thing that comes to mind is the creative arts. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about AI and, theater and,
Music.
but so those academic programs are going to need to deal with these same sort of issues and whether they can learn from the research you've done and the thought you've put into it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
good.
that's,
I think
I'm not from that side of the world, so I don't know that much about it, but I hear about it all the time of, actors being upset and all the tools that are available. So,
It is wonderful to hear the feedback and perspective.
Yeah.
Definitely take these words back to the institute.
because this is, you've, again, clearly have done put a lot of thought into this. So I appreciate you sharing that today.
Matt's world of side.
Your
you
mic.
Also want to look.
Turn your mic on.
And from Matt's Regent Crocker's side of world, you also want to look at physical intelligence. That's coming rapidly as well.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great report.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much. Next up, act on proposed regulations on the Kansas Nursing Service Scholarship Program. Associate General Counsel Gage Rolfe.
All right. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair Benson. In September, the Governance Committee authorized board staff to begin the formal rulemaking process to update the board's regulations under the Kansas Nursing Service Scholarship Program. This is a statutory program that authorizes the board to award scholarships to students pursuing licensure as LPNs and RNs in exchange for the student's commitment to practice in Kansas after graduation. The primary objective of the updates was to allow the scholarship to be awarded to students taking fewer than 12 credit hours per semester. Currently, the regulations require that the student be enrolled full-time. So this would allow both students whose full-time coursework comprises fewer than 12 credit hours and students who wish to attend part-time to participate in the program. In addition to that update, the program regulations would be amended and where necessary revoked to conform the regulations to statutory changes. Since the regulations were last updated in the early 1990s, there have been a couple since then, and also to eliminate now unnecessary provisions, particularly those regarding the method for determining student financial need, all of which have been supplanted by the FAFSA process since that early 1990s time period. So the proposed amended regulations and revocations, which were distributed to the board as supplemental materials with the agenda, and also have been described in the issue paper and posted publicly on the board's website, have been approved by all the necessary outside agencies, have undergone the statutory notice and comment period, and are now ripe for final board action if the board chooses to adopt them. And if that is the board's wish, by statute, a roll call vote is required.
A roll call vote is required.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, Regent Wolf Moore.
Thank you very much. I just have a couple questions. So
Sure.
who funds this? Is that the legislature who funds this?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how, I know that the grants or the scholarships are $4,000 to $6,000.
Right.
So is there a certain pot of money? How many scholarships do they normally give out?
I have a little bit of that information. There is a certain pot of money. I believe the annual appropriation recently has been $1.5 million. And so the appropriations bill specifies those funds for this scholarship program. As far as how many students, I can only tell you that this past academic year, I believe there were 240 some scholarships awarded. There is a significant headspace in the appropriation though, so I believe our staff would like to get those numbers up.
And then my last question, so the legislature changed it recently to require that scholarships be offered to our students who are not Kansas residents?
Yes, that was actually in 2017.
Okay.
Yep. And so that's an affirmative requirement. We cannot require a residency.
Right. I guess the idea behind that is that to get people from out of state to stay in Kansas. So.
I suspect you're right.
Okay. Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes, Regent Johnston.
What role does the board play in marketing the scholarship opportunity, getting our numbers up?
So I don't, Elaine, are you peeking around the corner? So I don't know exactly what marketing efforts. We do have a board financial aid director who is in charge of the programs.
Thank you for that question. We do not have specific funding in our budget for marketing our program. So it is a challenge for us to get the word out, but we have close relationships with all the eligible schools for which nursing degrees are awarded, and through them, they provide this information. So the schools really offer our conduit and access to
To
students.
get at, and it's semester by semester. You get a semester, you give a semester.
Yes.
Okay, and there's no longer an employer sponsor that's required, so they don't even have to have necessarily a job identified yet.
Yes, and that employer sponsor had been an inhibitor for
Yeah,
participation.
I think that's a huge
It has been a
obstacle.
boon. And this change with part-time students allowed will be even a bigger boon for the program.
Is there any other agency or entity that helps market this scholarship, or does that really fall on us?
I would say that there is an entity in Wichita, and the name is escaping me at the moment, that has received several $1 million a year through the Department of Commerce, that is doing a lot of Facebook ads and social media ads promoting the Promise Service Scholarship. And so that's another avenue for our 2-year colleges and students getting a nursing degree there. So we actually have a bit of overlap between this program and the Promise Scholarship.
But I think I hear you saying there's additional capacity that we have in this program. Is that fair?
Yes, financially, we do have some room here. We need to
We need to
start
figure out
spending
how
more
to do it.
dollars. And this is one effective way to do that.
Okay.
Regent Alicia Johnston.
Thank you, Chair Benson. And you may have already answered this, but so this scholarship is available to community college, technical college, or so those seeking an ADN or a baccalaureate.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
thank you.
correct.
Yes, Regent Amar.
Thank you. This may just be for clarification, but I'm attached, it looks like it's a Kansas laws and Regent Peter Johnson, you can chime in on definitions,
Mhm.
but I see it's Department of Administration, it's been approved, but is that what I'm looking at is revised Kansas?
Exactly. Yeah. So those are the revised regulations, and those stamps you see on the bottom are all the agencies in the chain that have to approve the language.
Okay, and that's John, because then we're gonna update what we have in our system as well to.
That's correct. So if the board adopts those today, then we'll clean those up and send them to the Secretary of State's office, and they'll get them published in the KARs.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Gage? Okay, hearing none, Jennifer will conduct our roll call.
Regent Parker?
Yes.
Regent Amar?
Present.
Or yes?
Voting this or no?
Yes or aye?
Just a point of clarification. We're voting in favor or
Yes.
against this, right?
Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Like, what are we doing?
So maybe, yeah, Regent Amar, if you'll indicate aye or,
I just said yes.
okay,
You want me
okay,
to-
got it. No, that's
Sorry.
good.
Sorry.
Regent Prasker?
Yes, I vote for it.
Vice Chair Mendoza?
Yes.
Chair Benson?
Yes.
Regent Wolfmore?
Yes.
Regent Alicia Johnston?
Yes.
Regent Peter Johnston?
Yes.
And Regent Dyke?
Yes.
All right.
All right. We'll finalize those.
You again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gage. And final agenda item this morning, act on delegation of appointment of interim president of the Kansas Board of Regents to the board chair. Oh, that's right. I'm working off an old agenda. My apologies. Call on President Newsom to act on a naming request of an end zone facility after Freeman Health System.
So thank you, Chair Benson, and I know I'm standing in the way of us and a reception and dinner, so trying to be quick. Happy to say that last Regents meeting, we had received approval for a $14 million end zone building at Carney Smith Stadium on campus of Pittsburgh State University. And so now I bring you this on behalf of the university. I'm seeking your approval to recognize Freeman Health System's donation to the recently approved end zone facility with large-scale exterior signage bearing their name as a distinguished donor and partner to PSU athletics. Per board policy, this action requires your approval. Pending approval by the Kansas Board of Regents, Freeman Health Systems will be recognized on the southeast and west sides of the end zone facility. Name recognition branding will apply for 10 years, commencing at the opening of the facility. At 10 years, the Freeman Health System shall receive the right of first refusal to renew the pledge agreement based on the current needs of PSU athletics and market value on that date. Freeman Health Systems has been an invaluable partner to Pittsburgh State and specifically Intercollegiate Athletics for more than 10 years. They have partnered to develop the sports medicine program into one that is viewed as a model in NCAA Division II athletics. By providing athletic trainers, team physicians, physical therapy, and other medical advice and services. PSU has grown its program to the level where it is currently only because of the assistance from Freeman Health Systems. They've also been involved in multiple capital projects over that time, including renovations of the Garfield Weed Building, turf replacement at Carney Smith Stadium. They annually support corporate sponsorships, initiatives, and provide scholarship funding through our Silverback Fund. Thrilled to seek your approval of this unique donor recognition opportunity to recognize the long partnership between Pittsburgh State University and Freeman Medical Systems. Thank you in advance for consideration. So with this gift, we will have reached about the 85 plus mark in fundraising for this facility with the hope that we could finish drawings and specifications this fall and break ground as soon as football season's over this fall. And with that, ask for your approval. This building will be 100% donor funded. And of course, will be an ongoing revenue generator for our athletic department.
Okay, thank you, President Newsom. Any questions for President Newsom? Hearing none, would entertain a motion to approve. Okay, motion by Regent Johnston, second by Regent Crocker. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, President Newsom. Now, finally, acting on delegation of appointment of interim president of the Kansas Board of Regents to the board chair. With President Flanders' impending retirement, search is underway for a new CEO. The search is going well. It will not be wrapped up by June 30th, so it will create a need for an interim chair. And in similar situations in the past, the Board of Regents has delegated the authority to appoint an interim to the board chair. So I would ask my colleagues to consider that this afternoon, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But at the end of that, would ask for an official motion to provide the authority to appoint an interim to the board chair. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions. Okay. I think Regent Dicus is ready to make one last motion. Okay, have a motion by Regent Dicus.
Yeah.
Second by Regent Amar. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you so much. Well, just one last time, would encourage you to join us this evening as we honor President Flanders for your service to the system and to the state. And not having any other items on the agenda, we will stand adjourned.